Yay, it's live. Okie dokie.
Hey.
Well, hello everyone. Hope you're doing very, very well. I just want to make sure the audio is working. So everyone give me like 3 seconds as I confirm. Yes, it is working fine. Excellent. Well, today we have a very cool guest who is...
Hello, I'm Anja from Alemania. Nice to meet you, everybody.
Yeah, so Anja and I follow each other on Instagram, and I think that is how we first crossed paths. And I met her in person briefly. We didn't talk much, but last year at Langfest, and then we had a chance to talk a little bit more this year at Langfest. Yeah. And I thought it'd be cool to bring Anja on and talk about some of the languages she speaks, how she's learned them, what works for her, what doesn't work for her, learn a little bit more about her. And I thought it'd be cool to have her on, especially because Anja has a very bubbly personality and a very alegre, una personalidad muy alegre, you know, very whatever alegre is in English. I can't think of the word for it right now. And so I thought it'd be interesting to have you on. So I think a good place to start is Anja from Alemania translates to Anja from Germany. However, you've written it in Spanish. So what is happening there?
So first of all, for those who don't know, I live in Mexico. I moved to Mexico about 4 years ago. I've lived, worked, studied in different countries, and about 4 years ago, I moved to Mexico. And my sister's boyfriend is English, British, and he used to make this joke. I don't know, since I moved to Mexico, I think every time I got home, he was like, "Hello, Anja from Alemania." And I just found it such a cool name that I started using it on the social media channels. And I really like it because this, like a lot of people don't know, because my name is spelled A-N-J-A, and a lot of people would say Anja or Anja. But with that name, they get used to this, like A-N-J-A is spelled Anja and not Anja or Anja or Anja. So yeah, that's a story about this Anja from Alemania name.
Interesting. And so what do you do on your social media?
So basically, I use mainly Instagram and a little bit of Facebook as well. You can find the Facebook page as well, but mainly Instagram. And the idea of the Instagram channel is really to motivate others to start learning a language. So I'm like, as for you, the same, Azren, a lot in this like polyglots communities, and I talk to a lot of people who already speak like 5, 6, up to 20 languages. And I really believe that everybody can really learn a language. It's just about finding your own way. And so this is basically what I want to show also in my Instagram, that it's possible for everybody. I usually give like those language advice of the day. In my Insta stories, I share a little bit like my daily life and how languages are involved in my daily life.
Actually, on that note, tell us about your exercising kick and how you're combining it with languages.
Okay, this is something that is honestly amazing. You should definitely try it. So we started, so I have a language school here in Mexico, and we recently started this new program that is called Learn and Burn. And Learn and Burn, the idea is to combine language learning, so vocabulary learning, with exercising. And so I did this workshop in Montreal at the Langfest. And it was just so much fun. I've already tried it here in Mexico before. So basically the idea is, when you imagine that you learn language and you study vocabulary, usually it's like you're at home, you're sitting at your desk, it's pretty boring usually. And since we like almost never have enough time to work out, we find the same excuses for not exercising, the same as for like why we don't have time to learn language. So when you combine those two things, you do two things at the same time, plus it just feels great. And in addition to that, when you study your vocabulary while exercising, it actually helps you a lot for the long-term memory. And
wouldn't it make it harder to remember if you're like expensing energy on exercise? And like, I guess what I'm trying to figure out, I wasn't at that workshop. I'm trying to figure out, how do you combine languages and exercise. For example, I've seen on your Instagram where you are like where you're counting, for example, right?
Exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. I go, oh, you count if you're going to do 15 repetitions of something, you count it in blah 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 language. How else do you like? What are the other ways to combine it?
So counting is super easy, and basically this is just for the beginner level. I just do it for German right now because I'm teaching German for 10 years, and basically that's the language that I'm like most experienced in when it comes to teaching. And yeah, so you can do it like with every kind of level. So at the Langfest workshop, we had two different groups. For example, we had the beginner group and the like more advanced or so-called A2 group. And then basically you decide to do an exercise. It could be like from lunges to planks or whatever. And you use a category of words. For example, let's say, oh, what is always hard in like any language is the past participles, like same as when you learn English or when you learn German and you would say like go, went, gone, or in German it would be like
Right.
gehen, gegangen, right? And so those irregular things are super hard to remember. So usually after 10 years of teaching German, I know my students very well and I know like what they really struggle with. And so I choose words that I know they have problems with. And then, for example, it could be 10 irregular past participles. And then we would do like lunges or sit-ups or whatever. Instead of counting, doing the sit-ups 1, 2, we would count like gefahren, gegangen, eingekauft. Or you can even do it with like fruits or whatever. You could say banane, apfel, orange. And the energy is just amazing. It's yeah, doing it with other people is even better.
So is it mostly for vocabulary study then?
Yeah. So for me, really, and I think this is also something that we will talk about during those 50 minutes now. Learning a language for me personally, it's really like I've tried a lot of apps, and I really believe that every single app has its like well, positive parts and also the negative things. But for me, I've never really learned a language with just an app. And this is the same for this program. It's like it helps you in a fun way to learn vocabulary and also to combine two things at the same time, which is time saving. Plus, it really shows the long-term effect really shows that the learning effects are higher for your long-term memory. And this is amazing. But obviously, you don't like learn how to. You don't learn a language like 100% completely with just that.
Right. Totally. Okay, let's change gears a little bit. I have a silly little question for you. So it's a two-part question. Number one, actually, it's a one-part question, but it's a question that combines two different things.
Oh my God. I love the way he explains things like the perfect teacher.
I want you to say the word hat in every language that you speak. And I want you to say specifically hat because I notice you always have some kind of cool hat on. At Langfest, it was the black one. Right now, it's this, not yellow. What color is that? Not white.
Yeah, it's like white cream. Yeah, cream. Yeah.
That's the one. So how do you say hat? So tell us hat in the various languages you speak, and then tell us what language it is.
Okay. Oh, no, let's do it the other way around. I tell you the language and you guess what language it is because I'm pretty sure you know the languages.
Sure.
Okay, obviously hat, English. Chapeau.
French.
Yeah. Sombrero.
Spanish.
Yeah, good one. Hoot.
I'm going to just randomly guess German.
Yeah. Let me think about Portuguese. I would guess, I'm not exactly sure. I would say it's the same, sombrero, but I'm not 100% sure. I would need to check this.
Okay.
Do you know it? Do you know Portuguese or not?
The short answer is I can understand a decent amount of Brazilian Portuguese, but I can't speak at all. That's the short answer. The medium length answer is when I was, I think, would have been 16, I was in Brazil for a while, and I learned at the time I could speak okay enough to get by.
Wow, good.
But I also really learned a lot of the the pronunciation elements, which allows me now when I hear it and I hear like something that ends in oo, I know it ends in letter O, which then helps me figure out what word it is in Spanish, and I can understand the word. Does that make sense? So,
oh, wow. Yeah, okay.
There's a longer answer, but it's kind of boring, so we'll leave it there.
but right now, so for example, there was a couple of Brazilians at the Langfest, you are able to like talk to them in Portuguese to have like a basic conversation.
If they speak slowly in Portuguese, and there's context as to what they're saying, like when they were giving the speech about what were they saying? What the food, I think it was, or I forget what they were saying in Portuguese, but they were saying something. I knew the context of what they're talking about, and so
right.
it was easy enough to follow the general gist of what they're saying. But if it's a conversation, it's harder because number one, I can't speak Portuguese, and number two, I have no idea what type of question they're going to ask me, and so it's very difficult for me to like pinpoint what kind of to predict potentially what they're asking. But if they're giving a talk about welcoming us there, I know the types of vocabulary that might come out, and so I can maybe piece it together.
Good, yeah, that's good. Yeah, nice. So. Well, yeah, so I'm also not 100% sure about hat in Portuguese. I think in Swedish, because I'm pretty sure I bought when I was in Stockholm, I bought a hat, and I think it's also hat. Okay. But I'm not sure. My Swedish friends might tell me after this video.
So my assumption is that you speak English, French, Spanish, German. Those are your four main ones, and you're learning, from what I can tell, based on our conversation on Instagram, Nahuatl.
Exactly. So my Portuguese is actually at an okay level. I'd say like maybe B1. Okay. I started learning Swedish a little bit, but now I got more into Nahuatl. For those who don't know, Nahuatl is one of the indigenous languages here from Mexico. And after 4 years living in this country, this is like a whole new experience for me. It's just also amazing to see. So we have this like really cool group and this amazing Nahuatl teacher and the motivation behind this, because usually like in my school, that when people start learning a language, it's usually because they need German for work or because they have found, I don't know, they fell in love with a French guy or French woman or whatever. And Nahuatl is really to get back to the roots. And this is like fascinating, really. I don't know how this is in Canada. If anybody is learning indigenous languages, I don't think so. I've never heard about this in Canada. But
people do, but it's not. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily as common as learning Spanish.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, and for me, it is hilarious because it's like all the languages. I mean, I did study a little bit of Mandarin, and obviously that was completely like something completely different from the language that I had studied before. And I feel like it's the same with Nahuatl. So, like, for example, the counting system is completely different. And then now, like, for example, I study more and more Nahuatl, a lot of things make sense here in Mexico. Like the names of the cities or of the mountains or even food, like you can explain a couple of things. And this is amazing. Very beautiful language.
Interesting. How far along are you with it?
Oh, I started 4 weeks ago, so very, very basic.
Oh, so very recent?
Yeah, very recent. Yeah. Like really, I had maybe 8 classes in total since I went to Canada. No, like very, very basic.
Right. And are there resources for it? Like, is it something that's like, is it, for example, if I look for resources for my mother tongue, it's difficult and it's not an easy language for someone to go out and learn.
Yeah.
How is it for Nahuatl?
Same, especially because, as it is often the case when there is mountains, the language, so there was Nahuatl basically in the like center region of Mexico, but then the mountains made that there is different dialects. So here in Puebla, where I live, for example, it could be, the language Nahuatl could be completely different compared to a pueblo that is maybe an hour away. And so it's very hard to find like this like standard Nahuatl. And my teacher started learning Nahuatl when he was 14. And he has learned with like one of those big maestros. And this maestro wrote a book. And we all wanted to support this maestro to like sell his book and wanted to buy this book. And then like this week, I've learned that actually it's a very sad story, but I think it's also important to share this. That so the government got interested in this book, which is nice, right? And in the end, they told him that he would earn 10 pesos per copy or something, which is about 50 dollar cents, let's say.
Okay.
And yeah, and then he just stopped, like they took away the rights of the book from him that he wrote, so now he's not earning any money with that book. So we kind of like said, okay, we don't want to buy this book right now. Yeah, no, it is definitely hard to find material. There is one app that I tried that I did not really like. It was very, very limited, I found. Yeah, there is very, very few resources, definitely, yeah. Which
So
makes it
how, based on your 8 classes so far, what would you recommend for someone who's learning? What have been some learning points for you as you've been trying to learn a language that maybe is not as common or doesn't have as many available resources?
So I think being in Mexico makes it way easier because, for example, Nahuatl has this like specific endings. And once you started the language, first of all, my recommendation is always learning with others. Me, it's like my type of motivation. I'm like, honestly, the worst language learner ever that you could imagine. Like studying by myself, like seriously, I just can't. I've tried it a couple of times, and I do it like, for example, to, I don't know, repeat or to exercise at the same time. But like learning a language complete 100% just by myself, never done it, and I'm not sure if I would succeed in doing it. So for me, this like having a group and having a teacher helps me a lot to motivate me and also to motivate others at the same time. And then I think the most important is that you always think not just in this like theoretical way, but also, okay, why is this important now? What do I need it for? So for example, you understand the endings of a language, and you can with that you can figure out the name of the language, like the meaning behind this name. Or for example, the first weekend I went to the market, and there's obviously a lot of native speaker, and they're very shy about telling you that they're a native speaker. My teacher had told me that before, and I've realized that as well. So I was like, I tried to say like something though, like, hey, so I would like to tell you the first sentence that I've learned in Nahuatl. And they were like, I don't speak Nahuatl. And I was like, well, you do. I know you do. And so that was also very hard because sometimes they feel like ashamed because of racism that still exists. And yeah, so I really believe that going to those people, and the more you tell them that you're interested in their language, the more they will feel confident as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's an Aztec language? Is that, I might be wrong on that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Well, we have 2 questions from the live chat. One of them's quick. Where are you from?
From Alemania.
So Germany.
Yeah, Alemania means Germany. Exactly. Sorry. Okay. All right. Germany, Deutschland. Yeah.
Based on the name, I think he's Russian, I believe, but I can't read it, so I'm just guessing based on what it looks like. And the second question, it's a little bit of a deeper question from Rasmus, who says, how do you keep Portuguese? So it's a 2-part question. Number 1, how do you keep Portuguese and Spanish separate? And number 2, how do you make sure you use the right words and pronunciation?
Okay, first question. So what I do a lot, and it's funny because when we were sitting in this workshop and you told me, Azren, that you're like singing and that helps you a lot. No, you said talking to yourself under the shower, right? This is what you said.
Oh yeah,
right?
the talking. Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
So actually, I don't do it that much under the shower. I listen more to podcasts, but I talk a lot in general to myself, to my cat in general. And so for me, there's a lot of people who say like, oh, okay, now I study Spanish, so I don't want to like mix it up with Portuguese. So I first study Spanish and then I will get to Portuguese. Personally, I believe that one day it's anyway going to happen, that you will need to learn how to not get confused, how to separate those languages that are pretty similar. And so the earlier you start doing this, the better it is. So for example, I remember like a couple of months ago, it was still very, very hard that after my Portuguese class, I went out and talked to my Mexican friends and to like switch directly to Spanish. And right now it is easier. It's still sometimes hard, but the more I train, so for example, I would go home after my Portuguese class telling myself, okay, how was my day? What did I do? Telling myself this in Portuguese. and then I would complete the story, like telling the next part of the story in Spanish. So like 30 seconds Portuguese, 30 seconds Spanish. And in the beginning, it's super hard. And I still do a lot of portuñol, I'd say. But yeah, it's all about training, as always in life. And then the second question was, what was the second?
I think you basically answered it. He followed up, and he basically is trying to figure out, how do you not mix them up? Like, how do you not mix up the words and the pronunciation between the two? Like, if you're trying to speak Spanish, how do you not mix in Portuguese by accident? Which I think is basically what you.
Yeah, the thing is also, like especially, but I think a lot of cultures, like, but especially Latin cultures, they won't correct you. So when you make a mistake, for example, I always need to tell people, please correct me, because, like sometimes I realize, oh, I made a mistake, and people do not correct me because they want to be polite. But for me, like when people correct me, it's a nice way of telling me, hey, I want to help you. And yeah, so this is also why one of the reasons why I take classes, because well, the teacher is getting paid to correct me.
Right.
Yeah, basically this is one of the reasons as well.
Totally. Well, let's wrap this up here. Everyone, Anya's Instagram is in the description below. It's at Anja, so ANJA _from _Alemania, so ALEMANIA. Any parting words, Anja?
Well, I just wish that really everybody who is following Azren, that you keep being motivated to learn languages, because it's just great to share this. And Azren, like I watch all his stories, to be honest, and he motivates me as well.
Thank you.
So it's also nice to like have this between polyglots, this community, and yeah. Go for it always. And whenever you feel like, oh, I can't anymore, there's always a way to do it. Always, always, always.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for being on, and
thank you for the
we'll
invitation.
chat later. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.